Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, the outlet for you if you've got a property question on your mind. You've tried asking your friends, they're not very interested. Ask us instead. It's really easy to do.
Yes, you can go to our lovely shiny website, propertyhub.net/ask, and leave a message there. Or you can call 013 808 00035 and you will get to that very special voicemail.
Hey, Rob and Rob. Steve here. Thanks very much for the podcast, which I very much enjoyed listening to, and I've learned a lot over the years. I've got a question. You talk quite a bit about investing, choosing your investment area and doing your due diligence. So currently all the properties that we own are close to where we live. And for my next investment property, I'm considering broadening my search and perhaps choosing an area that we don't live. And I'm just wondering, what's the sort of done thing? Are you viewing properties? Do you find that landlords that are making investments in places that are further afield from where they live, do they view the properties that they're buying? Because we're in the north of Scotland, so if we were to invest, say, in the north of England, that would be quite a commitment to be going down and viewing properties. So I just wondered what your thoughts were on that, how risky it might be to buy a property without viewing. So yeah, I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that. Thanks very much.
Steve, thank you for the question. It takes us into some really interesting territory that I know will be applicable to a lot of people because many listeners are in this kind of situation. They want to invest further afield, or they need to invest further afield, but they just don't know how. So there are two ways of cracking this, and the first of those is to actually still go and view in person just like you would if you were local. So that normally involves picking an area that is doable, so it's not at the absolute other end of the country, and then just go do a very intense day or stay overnight and compress everything into as short a space of time as you can. There are obvious advantages to doing that, but it can be tough. A lot of people are juggling jobs and family and frankly don't want to be doing all that. So there is another way, which is finding someone else who you trust to view on your behalf. Now, there are different ways of finding that person. So that person could be a local letting agent. So someone who you say, if I acquire a property, you can manage it for me. So can you help me out by going and having a look at some? You'd be surprised how often that works. It could be another investor who you've got to know in the area who's out looking at properties anyway, and so that's not a big inconvenience for them. Or it could be a sourcing company, and I'll come to that in a minute. The key, though, however you do it, is it has to be someone you trust. It could be someone who you trust to view it and give an honest and informed opinion as much as if you did it yourself, possibly more so if they're an expert and you are less so. There is a bit of a wrinkle in this, which I came across recently, and it's something that's worth being aware of. So for most of my recent acquisitions, I've bought them through Property Hub Invest, which is the company that we own that helps property investors buy portfolios. Those investors do it without viewing the properties. They just get a whole report with lots of information and photos and things like that, and the whole deal is set up. So as long as you trust the company and the research, it all works. However, I also bought one recently that wasn't through Property Hub Invest that a friend had viewed. And because I trust this friend and I'd seen the photos and everything else, I was perfectly happy to move ahead without viewing it myself. However, it was really difficult to persuade the agent to accept my offer when I hadn't viewed the property. I think they basically thought that I wasn't serious, or they were worried that I was going to pull out at some future point if I did see it and I didn't know what the property was all about. So in the end, my PA had to go and view it, which was a complete waste of time because she saw all the same stuff that someone else had already seen. But that's what the agent needed to put the offer forward. So not all agents are going to react that way, but it's worth being aware of as something that you're going to navigate and perhaps something that you should flag up sooner. I didn't, and perhaps if I'd explained the situation earlier, that could have been avoided. But basically, Steve, to answer your final question, how risky is it to buy property without viewing? Obviously, if you do it the wrong way, it can be extremely risky. But if someone else views it and you trust that person, then it doesn't have to be risky at all.
Thank you, Steve. Hopefully you've got a lot of value out of that question and Rob's personal experiences. Next, we have a question in from Diana.
Hello, it's Joanna here from Kent. Love the show, and it's inspired us to push forward with our property portfolio. And we've actually just completed on our fourth property. So thanks for your help. We have a 2-bed flat in London, which is currently valued at £425,000. It has over £200,000 worth of equity in it due to putting a big deposit down when we initially bought it. Due to it not earning enough rent at the moment, we actually can't release any of the equity that's in it. So we were considering selling it and buying an unencumbered property closer to where we live in Margate. We were thinking this could be good in the long term, as eventually we could get a mortgage on it further down the line. And for example, if there's a crash or something like that, we could use the money then to buy future investments. However, after listening to your podcast on investment areas earlier this week, you listed London as one of the places you would potentially invest in coming forwards. So you've got me second guessing our plan. So what would you guys do? Any advice is much appreciated. Thank you.
Diana, thank you for your question. Now, you would think, as a person who loves doing a deal, I'm going to say, yeah, crack on, do it. But I'm not. I'm going to advise against this. And the reason I'm going to advise against this is for two reasons. The first reason is unless this property is causing you all sorts of trouble, you're not upgrading your portfolio. You're just moving it from one place to another, because you're not going to expand your portfolio by moving the money across to a place in Margate. In fact, you're not even going to get a mortgage and use leverage, which is one of the strongest tools you can use as a property investor. So because you're not using all that equity to go and expand that portfolio and grow out further, I wouldn't do this, because you're going to have transaction costs and you're going to have the faff of selling and then buying. There's a lot of effort there, a lot of taxes to pay for not a lot of reward financially. So I wouldn't do this. The exception being is if it was causing you trouble and issues. Because, again, to offer some personal experience, in my portfolio, I have a small number of properties that are a bit of a pain in the bum. And I am considering selling those at the moment and putting them into a property that's going to give me potentially less trouble in the short term and more upside in the long term when it comes to capital growth. So I'm not saying never sell a property and move it into something else. So unless this property is causing you a load of aggro, which it doesn't sound like it is, or you're going to maximize this equity to really expand your portfolio, which you've said you're not going to do, I wouldn't sell. Now, if your plans change and you really want to push that portfolio on and grow it out further and use all the equity available to expand the portfolio, great. Maybe then give it some serious consideration. Based on your current plans and your current ideas, I would say stay as you are, particularly because over the long term, there may be sexier places to invest right now, but over the long term, London is a really safe bet for property investment, and you might regret selling that in the future. So, Diana, not that exciting, but sometimes doing nothing is the best thing to do. But you won't want to do nothing this Thursday.
No, of course not. First thing you should do is listen to the Property Podcast, which is always out bright and early, ready for you to start your day. So looking forward to seeing you back here for that one, and enjoy your week till then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.